If you're here, I suspect you have a permanent residence interview coming up. Perhaps a few weeks down the line, perhaps even a month away, but maybe, just maybe, in the next few days. If it is the next few days, don't worry. These tips are going to help you prepare, even though you've got to hop on it right away. So let's go through them. I'm Carlos Batara, immigration attorney. And so I just want to make sure you're ready for your big day. The moment is probably just around the corner, although, as I said, the corner could be a month away or longer. But in most cases, I assume your big day is closer than that. So let's get going. Let's get started on these tips. First, always, always, always tell the truth. You get in trouble when you don't tell the truth. Little pebbles, little mistakes will not destroy your case. If you have something bigger than a pebble, a boulder, I hope that you have sought out legal counsel to discuss those issues before you go forward with your interview. Because what can happen is that your interview could turn into a nightmare and you could be referred to immigration court for the government to begin deportation proceedings against you. And you don't want that. So if you have something you're really worried about, you really need to consider rescheduling and talking to a professional immigration expert that can help you out in terms of those questions you have. But in any event, the point is this: always tell the truth, don't tell falsehoods. Secondly, don't fear the government officer. They're there to do a job. They're there to ensure that you qualify for the benefits you seek. And that's why they're going to ask you questions about your applications. They're going to ask you questions about your family relationship. They're going to ask questions about your entry and exits and your immigration history. That's common. That's their job. As I said, if you have a major problem, you need to seek professional counsel. And don't fear the officer, even when they don't shake your hand. When I first became an attorney, I was startled when an officer didn't shake my hand. I remember my first green card interview appointment. I stuck out my right hand to shake the individual's hand, and he turned his back to me and told me down the hallway. As we entered the hallway, I could see my client was nervous. So I whispered in her ear, "Everything's okay," even though I myself was a little confused by the officer's action. So I stuck out my hand again as we entered the hallway and we passed the officer, and he again turned his back to me and said, "Follow me." We went in his office and I tried to shake his hand. And he said, "We don't shake hands with individuals we're interviewing. It's policy." Now, personally, I've never found that policy. But personally, I've never had my hand shaken. And now, 2 decades plus, I don't worry about it. Because the only time I really would like a handshake is at the end of the interview. And some officers now, way back when they didn't, but now they do shake your hand when they grant you permanent residency. So don't worry about that. Don't fear the officer. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3, be sure you answer the question asked of you, which means be sure you understand the question asked of you. If you don't understand the question, and that's not uncommon, for law is full of these words and terms and concepts that just don't fit in everyday language. It's the way we speak. It's the way law is written. And sometimes you'll be asked a question that baffles you or that you don't comprehend. Ask them to clarify. It's A-OK. There's nothing wrong with trying to understand the question. And if, again, they still don't explain it in a way you understand? Well, tell them again, because it's their duty to explain the question. It's your obligation to answer it correctly. And how can you answer something correctly that you don't understand accurately? Most cases, it won't happen. Which leads to tip number 4. Do not guess. If you don't know an answer, then don't try to guess the answer, because that will get you in more trouble than necessary. It will put you in a position of seeming like you're not telling the truth. You'll be seen as perpetuating a sham on the government. They'll think you're not telling the truth. So if you have to guess or estimate, do so. I'm not sure if that occurred in 1997 or 98 or 99. That's an acceptable answer. I'm not sure if I entered in April or May, maybe even later, maybe it's September. That's okay. And even if the officer's insistent and they push you for a more precise answer, if you can't give a more precise answer, then don't give one. Explain. That's the best that I can give you today. Now, if you're guessing on almost all the questions of the application, you could have a problem. But that would tell me one thing about your case. You're not prepared. You did not help whoever prepared those papers for you prepare them in an adequate way, because you would know the questions already from the application that are going to be thrown at you, and you would already know your responses. There is no reason for you not to know what answers you've already given. And that's why you have to review things in advance. And so as you're going through your questions on the application prior to the interview, you may spot things that aren't really right, or that you stated incorrectly, or that's recorded wrongly. That goes to tip number 5. Tip number 5 is that if you make a mistake, admit it. And it happens. It happens on the applications you file. It could be that the biometrics report comes out with an incident where you were apprehended, even if it was only temporarily, that you didn't recall. So you didn't list that incident on your application. Or maybe it'll be that since the time you filled out your application, the time that it was submitted, you remember some other things about a particular question that wasn't included in the application. If you feel those questions are going to cause you problems, you have to seek out professional counsel right away. Do not take a chance that those questions and answers could undermine your application. If you fear them, get the advice from someone. Find a local attorney, 2, 3, talk to them, find out. Hopefully you have enough time. Hopefully you're not one of those individuals watching this video 2 nights before their interview and all of a sudden discover that, oh my goodness, I have problems. If you do, though, you can reschedule your appointment. Do it correctly. Do it in writing. Do it through certified mail or hand delivered, but make sure you keep a copy of what you write and you give a good reason for needing to reschedule your appointment. Now, let me go through some things not directly related to your questions and answers, a few tips that could help you in winning your green card. They're related to reducing the stress you're going to feel in that room. First, arrive early. Arrive 30 minutes early. If you don't know the location, you should map it out ahead of time. More so, you should even drive it, unless you live like 3 hours away. But drive to where the interview is. Make sure you know the roads. There may be some construction going on. And even on the day that you're going there, there could be accidents. So don't take a chance. Leave your home early, at least 2 times early, as if it was a normal trip. with a 30-minute buffer. So let's say it's an hour drive to get to where you're going to be interviewed. We'll leave 2.5 hours early because you're extending 2 hours for travel time so that you get there 30 minutes early. Being there early will keep your stress level. If you're rushing on the freeway, on the roads to get there on time, and you're stressing about it, and maybe you're driving with your spouse or another family member, and you're stressed and you start to argue with them, that's not going to serve you well when you get to the interview. It's going to cause you problems, especially when you get hit with questions that are tough about something you didn't remember, about something where you have to estimate. It's going to cause you problems. Don't put yourself in that situation. Keep the stress level down. Another tip to reduce your stress is don't take your cell phone in the building. That's my recommendation. Leave it in the car. But if you do take it, keep it silenced, keep it off. And a woman who visited my office a few months ago, and she and her husband lost her interview. She gave horrible answers. I mean, horrible answers to questions. She was in the waiting room about an hour and a half before the case was called with her husband. Meanwhile, she was texting back and forth with one of her children. And it was causing her a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. She went in that interview and she could barely think straight. It wasn't until, 7, 8 questions down the line that she told the officer, can we hurry up? Can we hurry up? And when the officer questioned about it, she goes, I got other things on my mind. And she gave a terrible interview. They lost. Then they came to my office and we endeavored to clean it up. But you don't want to be put in that situation because you run the risk of the officer thinking again that you're doing something wrong, and then they'll refer you to the immigration court so that you will face deportation proceedings. A third tip in terms of reducing stress, and this is something I tell all my clients: visualize. Visualize the moment. Great singers visualize the crowd and singing before they hit the stage. Great boxers, great athletes visualize the moment, the fans in the crowd screaming, an opponent intent on defeating them before they enter the arena or the basketball court or the football field or the ring where the fight will be held. Great lawyers do the same thing. Visualize the moment when they walk into court and the judge calls the case and it's time to give opening argument. And then it's time to question witnesses and to give closing argument later. Visualize the moment, and those moments go smoother. Not totally smooth, but smoother. And there's a simple psychological reason why. And that's because you've rehearsed the moment. You've seen it in your mind. So the more you visualize, 3 times, 4 times, the better off you'll be when the moment occurs. If you're a boxer, you've seen that punch coming at you, you're able to duck it. If you're a soccer player and the defense is set up a certain way, you've seen it and you figured which way you want to go and how you want to fake your opponent. Visualize the moment. And when you visualize, do not visualize a weak opponent. Visualize a strong, formidable opponent. Someone that's not going to cut you any slack and is not going to allow any room for error. Why? Because you'll prepare more earnestly. Personally, when I was in college, I always told people, give me the strict professor because I know what they want and they'll get it. So do the same thing. Visualize a tough officer and give them what they want. Good information, precise information, accurate information. And the end result, you'll ace your interview. By the way, I have a couple of videos that you might want to watch. One has to do with certain tips for success, covering things like dress, documents, and translations. You may want to watch that video. It's called 6 Tips for Success. And I also have a 3-part series on the types of questions that you might face if your marriage is challenged. It's a 3-part series on the types of questions if they tend not to believe you. Now, if you follow the tips we just went over, the 8 tips, the 5 tips for how to answer questions, the 3 tips for how to reduce stress, you'll be in better shape when you're answering questions. And hopefully the other sets of questions about your marriage won't kick in. But if you do bad on the interview, like the woman who came in the interview all stressed, you're going to face those questions. You're going to face those challenges. The government is not necessarily going to buy the argument that yours is a legitimate and authentic marriage. So study these tips. Put them into practice. And I wish you all the success in the world. Thanks for watching. Know someone who might be interested in this video? Then please take a moment to like and share it with them. Also, if you would like more videos on immigration, just click on the subscribe button. And here's a little bonus, a short guide that you can download for free by clicking on the link on the description box or the square-shaped image. Plus, if you have ideas for videos you'd like to see, write a short comment below or feel free to contact me at carlos@bataraimmigrationlaw.com. My name is Carlos Batara. I appreciate your time and hopefully we'll be talking again very, very soon.